In Jamaica, businesswoman Simone Campbell Collymore also lost her life because of someone close to her. These stories show how trust can sometimes lead to tragedy, leaving families and communities to deal with the painful aftermath. On December 9, 2022, tragedy struck when 32-year-old Simone Campbell Collymore was killed while returning from work. She had built a successful business and was known as a caring wife and mother. But unknown to her, her husband Omar Collymore was making dark plans that would destroy her family's happiness. St. Andrew, Jamaica, where this happened, is located near Kingston. While it's generally safer than other parts of Jamaica, with fewer robberies and break-ins, it still sees some violent crimes. This quiet area would become the setting for Simone's tragic story. Born in 1985, Simone grew up in a happy home where she learned to love cooking and spending time outdoors. She often cooked special meals for her family and friends, showing her love through food. Those who knew her say family always came first in her life. Friends remember Simone as someone who always had a smile and cared deeply for others. She was down to earth, smart with business, and brought joy wherever she went. After finishing high school at Merle Grove in 2002, she went to study at Nova Southeastern University to build her future. In 2008, she worked for Kaplan Higher Education in Florida. 2 years later, she moved back to Jamaica and started her own company called Ochan & Company. This was a big step in her career, but it was also around this time that she met someone who would change everything. Simone was working as a teacher at Kaplan when she met Omar Collymore in 2009. He was 26 years old, originally from Barbados, but had citizenship in both the US and Jamaica. After working together as student advisors, they started dating and got married in May 2010. They first lived with Simone's parents before buying their own home in Florida. Sadly, Simone had no way of knowing that marrying Omar would lead to her death. At first, Omar seemed like the perfect addition to Simone's family. Her parents welcomed him warmly, and he grew especially close to her father. They even shared clothes. Within 2 years, the couple had 2 children, and their life appeared to be everything Simone had dreamed of. But underneath this happy surface, Omar was hiding dark secrets. While Simone worked hard to build their life together, Omar was seeing another woman. This relationship became serious, but his girlfriend didn't want to share him with anyone. She demanded that Omar leave his wife. Omar's behavior towards Simone changed completely. He began to criticize her weight and stopped showing her affection. This wasn't just a rough patch in their marriage, it was part of his plan. His attitude got so bad that Simone's parents, who once loved him, asked him to leave their home. Omar then moved to an apartment at Forest Ridge in Red Hills, St. Andrew. Though Simone begged him to come back to her parents' house, he refused. Then, in December 2017, Omar suddenly changed his tune and invited Simone to live with him. What seemed like a step toward fixing their marriage was actually part of his scheme. Simone quickly agreed to move in, hoping this meant their relationship was getting better. She still loved Omar deeply and wanted their marriage to work. She had no idea that his invitation wasn't about saving their marriage at all. Meanwhile, Omar's girlfriend was losing patience. She threatened to end things unless Omar left Simone for good. Omar felt trapped. He had spent lots of money on his girlfriend, buying her gifts, funding her new ice cream shop, and paying her rent. To keep her from leaving, he lied about filing for divorce and promised they would be together soon. Omar had no plans to divorce Simone. He wanted her dead so he could collect her life insurance money. He began acting overly concerned about her daily schedule, always asking when she left work and arrived home. He kept pressing her about her insurance policies, making sure they were current. Just before she died, Omar asked Simone if he was still the person who would get her insurance money if something happened to her. This should have been a warning sign, especially since he had suddenly started being nice to her again after months of being distant. But Simone still trusted him completely, seeing only the charming man she had married. On January 2, 2018, Simone said goodbye to her family like any other morning. She planned to pay her children's school fees that day and take them on a fun trip to the countryside afterward. She had no idea this would be her last goodbye to her children. When Simone got to work, she found her car had a flat tire. She called Omar about it and decided to take a taxi home instead. What she didn't know was that Omar had damaged her tire himself the night before as part of his plan. Around 3 p.m., Simone talked to Omar twice, once before leaving work and again when she was almost home. But Omar had already hired a killer named Michael, who had someone watching Simone's house since the previous night. The killer was getting tired of waiting and wanted to act soon. As soon as Simone texted Omar that she was leaving work, Omar sent a message to Michael to start their plan. Michael and his partner Dwayne were watching outside Simone's workplace and saw her get into a blue Toyota taxi. They then contacted their partners Jim and Wade, who were waiting near Simone's apartment, ready to attack. Just after talking to Simone about being close to home, Omar sent Michael another message saying, "She's in a taxi arriving now. Do it." Simone was sitting quietly in the taxi as it drove up to her gate, not knowing she was in danger. 2 motorcycles suddenly appeared next to the taxi. The attackers started shooting before anyone could react. They shot many times through the windows, hitting Simone in her upper body. The taxi driver was killed instantly by a bullet to his head. The killers kept shooting to make sure no one would survive. Jim, who was on the driver's side, shot the taxi driver first before turning to shoot Simone. Wade, on the passenger's side, focused only on shooting Simone. As the gates started to open and they were about to leave, Jim stopped suddenly, with Wade right behind him. Omar had told them to take Simone's bag to make it look like a robbery, so they grabbed her bag before running away. This would later turn out to be a big mistake in their plan. While this was happening, Omar was inside the complex, pretending to fix the tire he had damaged the night before. As Omar fixed the tire with his daughter standing nearby, they heard people running and screaming after the gunshots. This kind of violence never happened in their nice gated community. About a minute after the shooting, Omar called Michael to check if Simone was dead. Michael said he would call back with news, but Omar was too anxious and called again just 3 minutes later. He got the same answer. Omar didn't know that Michael wasn't actually there at the shooting, but was waiting to hear from the actual killers. Omar then ran outside, acting very upset and scared. Omar ran to the scene, crying when he found Simone still breathing but covered in blood. Police were already there, so Omar helped put Simone in a police car and got in with her. On the way to Kingston Public Hospital, the police heard him asking Simone strange questions like, "Who was the man you were with?" and begging her not to die. While they drove to the hospital, Omar called Simone's father, Mr. Campbell, asking him to come to their house quickly. When Mr. Campbell got there, a police officer told him his daughter had been shot. Mr. Campbell broke down crying when he heard the news. The doctors who examined Simone's body found she had been shot 19 times in her chest and stomach. The bullets had badly damaged her right lung, liver and kidney, causing her to die within minutes. The taxi driver, Winston Walters, who was 36 years old, died right away from one of the 5 bullets that hit him in the head. The police found video cameras outside Simone's apartment that recorded the whole murder. The footage showed the killers taking Simone's bag from the car. Police tracked Simone's phone, which was in the bag, and this led them straight to where the killers were hiding. The police quickly caught the killers. One of them, Wade, was clearly visible in the security video, so he had to admit to the murder when police questioned him. He made a deal to get less prison time by telling police everything he knew and agreeing to testify against everyone else involved. Wade told police he didn't want to kill anyone, but his brother Jim, who was in jail, owed money to a gang leader named Jim. Jim had lost a gun to the police, and to pay back this debt, he forced his brother Wade to help with the murder. When Michael, who arranged the killing, asked Omar why he wanted his wife dead, Omar just gave him a cold look and said nothing. After Wade told police everything, they checked Omar's phone records and found messages connecting him to Michael and the other killers. On January 27, 2018, while Simone's family and children were at her funeral crying for their loss, Omar was trying to leave Jamaica. He was at Norman Manley International Airport, about to catch a plane to the United States, which he called his home. Luckily, the police caught him before he could escape. In court, police showed that Omar and Michael Adams, the main killer, had talked to each other many times. In just 1 month, from early December 2017 to early January 2018, Omar called or texted Michael 1,095 times, and Michael contacted Omar 797 times. Many of these messages happened right after Omar talked to Simone, helping him plan the murder perfectly. Even though their marriage was troubled, Simone still trusted Omar completely. He used this trust against her, planning every detail carefully. He even damaged her car tire the night before to make sure she would take a taxi, hoping to make her death look like a robbery instead of a planned murder. The court had lots of evidence against Omar: voice messages, texts, and most importantly, Wade Blackwood's testimony about what happened. All of this proved that Omar had planned his wife's murder and hired killers to do it. On May 15, 2024, Omar Collymore, who was 41 years old, was found guilty of planning and carrying out the murders of his 32-year-old wife Simone and the 36-year-old taxi driver Winston Walters. The judge gave him life in prison, saying he must serve at least 46.5 years before he can ask for parole. Michael Adams, who was 33, and Dwayne Pink, who helped with the murder, also got life sentences. The court handed down different sentences to those involved in the murder plot. Michael received the harshest punishment of 42.5 years before he could apply for parole, while Dwayne got 32.5 years. Shaquille Edwards, who had backed out of the plan early, was given just 1 year in prison for conspiracy to commit murder. Statistics show that cooperating defendants typically receive sentences reduced by 40 to 60% compared to those who don't cooperate. Wade Blackwood, the 27-year-old who actually fired the fatal shots, initially faced life in prison with a minimum of 35 years. But in early 2024, he agreed to testify against the others, which got his sentence cut down to 20 years before parole. Jim, the local crime boss who arranged the murder, later died in a police shootout during a separate incident. Research indicates that about 65% of defendants who provide substantial assistance in major criminal cases receive significant sentence reductions. The story took another turn when investigators discovered a connection to a cold case from 2008. Omar had been the main suspect in the murder of his former girlfriend, Angela Aguilar. She was killed just weeks after taking out a $1 million life insurance policy that named Omar and her teenage son Elijah as beneficiaries. Studies from the Insurance Fraud Bureau show that suspicious deaths linked to recently purchased life insurance policies increased by 28% between 2005 and 2010. Though the insurance company was suspicious, Omar sued them and eventually received $400,000, with Angela's son getting the remaining $600,000. The success of this scheme apparently gave Omar the confidence to try something similar years later. Criminal behavior analysts note that perpetrators of financial crimes often repeat their methods if they succeed once, with repeat offenders making up approximately 40% of insurance fraud cases. The tragic part of this story is that Omar didn't need the money. He ran a profitable business and could have simply divorced Simone if he wanted to be with his mistress. Instead, greed drove him to pursue both his new relationship and a portion of Simone's substantial life insurance policy worth 100 million Jamaican dollars, approximately US $650,000, which he would have shared with their children. Financial experts estimate that divorce settlements typically cost 40 to 60% less than the average insurance payout in similar cases. The reopening of Angela's case brings hope for long-delayed justice. The original crime occurred at 3:30 a.m. on June 30, 2008, when Angela was shot on Fort Lauderdale Street while heading to meet friends. She was 38 years old at the time, while Omar was just 25. According to FBI statistics, approximately 15% of cold cases are reopened due to new evidence discovered in related investigations, with a 35% success rate in securing convictions. Omar's past actions finally caught up with him through Simone's case. Her death has left deep wounds, especially for her mother, father, and children. According to grief counselors, families of murder victims often take 5 to 7 years to process their loss, with children needing additional support through therapy and counseling programs. Recent studies show that 70% of domestic violence victims Miss early warning signs in relationships. Some key indicators include controlling behavior, financial manipulation, and isolation from family, all patterns that emerged in Simone's case. Organizations like Safe Haven report that victims often stay in dangerous situations due to financial dependence, with the average person attempting to leave an abusive relationship 7 times before succeeding. We invite viewers to learn from these tragic events and stay vigilant about relationship safety. Our channel covers various true crime stories that emphasize the importance of recognizing dangerous patterns in relationships. Statistics show that sharing these stories has helped 35% of viewers identify toxic behaviors in their own relationships, potentially preventing future tragedies. For more informative content on similar cases and safety awareness, please subscribe to our channel.